That is a large group of people.
Reminds me of November 16 when we were gearing up to come out to Standing Rock.
I think that first call we had 18, so this is pretty good.
Yep.
This blows that out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Nance.
We ready?
Let's go.
We are recording this for people, so people who aren't able to join can see it. We'll post it up later.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Nancy Hoffman. I am the Vice President / Treasurer, not happily treasurer because numbers are not my thing, but I am the Vice President Treasurer of Veterans Service Corps. My background is as occupationally, it was as a nurse and attorney. I was in the United States Navy Nurse Corps for 22 years, active 12 years in the reserve, a nice little stint for Desert Storm, and I joined this group last year in December, and I saw, probably like everyone else, what was going on at Standing Rock. We are going to try to keep this thing moving along today and not waste anyone's time, but we have a lot to cover. This is basically to familiarize everyone with the organization and its operations. Veterans Service Corps is a vehicle by which veterans and friends can reestablish their commitment to service and country through assistance to underserved communities and support of social justice and civil rights. You're going to hear about our history today. I'm not going to mission statement, values, all of those things. But there are one or two things I want to stress. For all of us who got this organization started in April of 2017, integrity and cooperation is imperative to us. And we believe both of those things are imperative to a successful organization. We've tried to integrate them into the structure that you're going to hear about, and we hope that that will appeal to you in working with others. I don't think any of us believe this is our organization individually. We always speak about it in the plural. It's us and ours and we. So you'll hear that a lot as we go forward today. As we continue, there are three things that I ask that you think about as we go forward. And that is, think about where you feel you fit into VSC, what shop or committee that you believe your talents and skills fit best with, and how you would like to participate in what we are doing. Secondly, I'd like you to think about participating in standing up chapters in your local geographic areas, so that the ideals that we talk about at VSC and that we're trying to accomplish aren't going to just happen in South Dakota, but we have a vehicle for everyone to bring those ideas home. When we get a project kind of in place and it's functional, that's something that a chapter can bring home. Or if a chapter finds something locally that needs to be addressed, that's something that they can do. So think about that as well. And then finally, I ask that you think about friends and colleagues who could also benefit from collaboration with the organization and would benefit themselves and VSC by joining us. We are grateful to everybody for giving up a Sunday afternoon to listen to us and hear what we have to say and participating today. I hope, and I know on behalf of the other board members, they hope that this will translate into, a successful transition for you to become much more active members in the organization and to help us grow, learn, and blossom as we go forward in these various missions. So welcome and thank you for coming. And I'm going to turn things back over to Dave, who is going to be our taskmaster today.
Excellent work, Nancy. You were in under 30 seconds under. So
See?
I'm going to turn, yep, typical naval efficiency.
There you go.
I'm going to turn it over to Pate, who has an organizational review for us, the history, mission, values, and goals of VSC. Pate, take it away.
So in November of 2016, I was getting ready for bed, and we were watching on YouTube people who were in prayer getting sprayed with water in freezing conditions. And immediately, Fran told me, "You're going," before I ever made up my mind. When we found out that there was this thing called Veteran Stand that was getting together and they were going to land all these veterans there, I was one of the early sign-up people. Chris and Brandon were much further into it than I was at that point. We got on a bus, we put a group together, two groups together in Ohio, and we made our way out to Standing Rock. And what happened next is really what is the DNA of this organization. When we got there, first off, we organized in Ohio within our group as really trying to give to each other and support each other through this experience. When we got there, we were really surprised to find about 10,000 veterans and allies that also showed up. And it was a logistical nightmare. So there were some things that we were very successful at, other things that we could learn lessons from. But we hadn't done any of that when the blizzard hit. And then it was scrambling literally to keep people from being dead. It was everything that we could do to really come out of that without any injuries, without any significant injuries, without any deaths. It was good. So we did an after action report. We put a call out. We had several hundred people return after action sheets, and Chris and I went to work on finding out what were the common threads. What could we, what's our SWOT? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what do we do really good? We learned that 40%, 45% of the folks who showed up in December weren't liberal. Many of them were outright Trump supporters. And that was kind of surprising because this was not something that we thought would appeal in that way. What brought us all together was that common thread of service. And when I was standing on the ground, literally standing on the ground, covered in snow and ice, and looking around at all these people working together, all this synergy that was wasted there because of poor planning. And it was poor planning because this had never been done before. The last time a group of veterans of that scale got together was during the Bonus Army. The Bonus Army. And when our veterans showed up, they expected to fall into line. They expected a battalion type structure. So one of the lessons learned was that if we ever need to do this again, several of the lessons learned was we need to do it with sanitation. We need to do it with efficiency and organization. And that efficiency is reliant upon our military training. So we've tried to set this up a lot like a battalion. And as we go through this today, that really is the direction we want to head. It allows for people to follow in immediately. So it's not like most any nonprofit I've ever found. We want to take your military knowledge, your military training, and all of those really good experiences and amplify them. So I amplify him, he amplifies me, we all amplify each other. We work together, we've removed ego as much as we possibly can. If you have a strong ego, you know, to work with us, it's something that you really do have to set aside, because we operate from the space of we, not I. That said, we developed a mission based on what we learned from the after action reports. The Veteran Service Corps engages veterans out of our shared oath of service to our country to improve our communities and protect constitutional and human rights. That's our mission statement. Our goals are well defined. We have 7 goals. Our number 1 goal, and this is our number 1 goal, this is what we're about, number 1. Establish and mobilize veterans to address injustice and protect rights. To us, that means humanitarian support. Our second goal, establish Promise Ranch as our base of operations in partnership with the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. Our third goal is to launch economic and environmental sustainability and youth development initiatives that improve the lives of the communities of veterans. Our fourth goal, establish Veteran Service Corps as a humanitarian non-governmental organization registered with the United Nations, taking actions on issues confronting humanity. That will take another year before we're ready to register. Fifth goal, produce news for veterans and allies. We'll be starting that through our newsletter, and we have VSC Real News that's currently running online. Our sixth goal is to inspire and support community action that engages veterans through community service and camaraderie. Many of our volunteers talked about camaraderie. The connection that we've all lost once we left the service is that basic camaraderie. That I know that the guy in the foxhole next to me has my back, or the lady in the foxhole next to me has my back. It's not just that feeling of safety, it's the support that we provide each other in accomplishing these goals. And then the last goal is ensure strong financial responsibility, operation, risk management, human relations, IT, communications, volunteer management, and board performance. The values, our value, can you pull up the Lakota our values page, please? I did not pull up the values page. We base these goals in the Lakota values, and it's, there we go, integrity, justice, inclusion, camaraderie, and generosity. So that's, if you're trying to figure out what we're about, those are the items. That's basically it. Veteran Service Corps is engaged in building towards an equitable world through maximizing the training, education, experience, and talents of the veteran community. VSC volunteers facilitate sustainable solutions that improve our communities, provide the infrastructure necessary to address complex systematic problems, and to build capacity in others through camaraderie, teamwork, and service. So that's us in a nutshell. Everything that we're doing is in support of one of those 7 goals and rooted in the values that we all hold dear. This is a great segment for segueing into Chris. I'd like to introduce Chris Busing. He is the president of Veteran Service Corps. We asked him to be the vet president because he demonstrated a type of caring leadership that very few people possess, quite frankly. And he garners respect from the population here, as well as our veteran community that stretches back to Standing Rock. So without further ado, Virginia Tech graduate, former cadet, and infantry officer, Chris Dusing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Dusing. I've been tasked to do something that I don't like to do, which is talk about myself. So this is going to be the deviance when you're going to hear I, me, and I don't like it either, so I'll try to keep it brief. As Pate said, I'm a Virginia Tech graduate. I did 10 years as an infantry officer, including my share of deployments. Really missed the Army after I got out. Never really had much success in the civilian world on the job market. Always ended up being just kind of a poor guy getting along until drastic change to my health had me fall through the social safety net. And I found I was subsiding in my little rental house in Charlotte, North Carolina, living on my pension, waiting for the day that I would join the ranks of the 22 veteran to take their own lives. Like a lot of everyone else, I saw what was happening at Standing Rock and became very angry about it. And it literally took someone asking me to come. So as far as I know, I was the first official volunteer for the Veterans Stand for Standing Rock movement. I was asked on Twitter, of all places, to come out by Wes Clark Jr., who I'd never met before then, but I'd served under his father when he was the NATO commander in Europe. And he asked me to go, and I said, you know, I'd love to, but my pension isn't going to cover me getting to North Dakota. So the fundraiser was my idea. It ended up being way more successful than we saw. I did volunteer to head up the operations, and if any of you guys came out, if you saw the regional team leaders, that RTL network that tried to organize down, that was something that I started to affect the movement to get people there safely. Unfortunately, it grew so big that there was very little that I could do on the ground while everything was going on, except for try to get people safe. And the biggest hope that I had was with that number of veterans that among the different groups that came out together, that someone in that group would look around to see what needed to be done and go about doing that. And in the days and weeks following the movement in December of 2016, I did start to hear stories as we were going through the after action report. That's how Pate and I first connected. And we decided that we had to do a proper after action review to do the lessons learned, because we saw that there would be a need potentially for this stuff to happen again going forward. And by gosh, we were going to do it right the next time that it needs to. And we're going to make sure that everyone's safe, and that we have all of our all the necessary things happening. At this point, I want to point out that there was something like $22 million raised to support the camps in Standing Rock in 2016. Not one of them by a registered nonprofit or even an organization at all. And yet still, when we came back in February during the eviction, I was pulling out money out of my own pension to give to veterans and water protectors to get them home. That's one of the reasons why one of the first things we did when we formed was to establish ourselves as a not-for-profit charitable humanitarian organization and go down the path of doing that. I had basically given up my life to be here with two short periods of time that I have not been here on the reservation working with our allies in the tribe and in this community. Unfortunately, most of my stuff is still in Charlotte, and I'm paying rent there. But you know, well, hopefully we'll be able to fix that here in the near future. When we came out in December of 16, we were coming to address a crisis, humanitarian and constitutional rights crisis of what was going on. Now, when the camps were cleared, all of the underlying issues that underserved and underdeveloped communities across the country face are still there. And we happen to find that, well, first and foremost, Native Americans has the highest rate of military participation of any ethnic group in the United States, and a whopping 47% of the members of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe are veterans. So we came here, we found brothers and sisters, we got to know them, we got to learn the issues that were affecting them, and we started coming up with plans for how to improve the quality of life, the community welfare, and everything else here. And that's the platform that that we've been working towards this past year, and we're at the point where it's time to start the engine and really kick this into the next gear. And with that, I yield my time.
So, how we doing on time, Dave Andrews?
Perfect.
Right on. So the organization, we set this thing up as a 501c3. It's registered in the state of California. That is our headquarters. It's actually Nancy's house. Nancy was kind enough on April 10th to walk the papers through in Sacramento, and we became official. The reason why we split with Veterans Stand was because we were going down a humanitarian path that believed in transparency and service in that order. We weren't finding that. So we set this thing up organizationally like a battalion. So we don't use words like commanding officer, but in the org, but it's, if you think about the positions in a battalion, that's essentially the positions that we need to create. We have a board of directors that consists of 6 people. Chris Ducey is the president. The vice president is Nancy Hoffman. The director of administration is David Andrews. The director of research, analysis, and education is vacant at the current time. The director of operations is myself. Director of supply and logistics is Brandon Boucher. Director of planning and development is also vacant. We've all been taking that role. I don't want there to be any confusion there. The board has been taking that role over the last year. And then the director of communications, which is Maureen Walsh. Maureen's husband is a Marine Corps veteran. She is a very valuable asset to us. She's a professional fundraiser in her day job, and she's really provided a good kick in the pants for us to keep this moving forward. Each of these shops, the S shops, have their own staff. So each shop has an S1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. So when I say S1, I'm talking about administration. When I say S2, I'm talking about research. In military terms, it's intelligence. In ours, it's research and analysis. S3 is operations. S4 is supply and logistics. S5, planning and development. S6, communications. That's based on the NATO model. One of the reasons why we've based this on the NATO model is because it's already familiar to our veterans. It provides an easy fall-in. It also provides clear responsibilities, clear delineation of responsibility. Each of the shops have a couple different committees in them, and each will be going over that here momentarily. There are 3 operations that Veterans Stand is involved with.
Veterans Service Corps.
Veterans Service Corps is involved with. The first one is the organization. The actual organization. We have our own operations that need to attach to the org. The second one is Operation Eagle. That's our legacy operation. It is what allows us to be able to stand up people for a humanitarian response. The third, I'll get more into that when it's my turn on operations. The third operation is Operation Promise. Operation Promise is intended to be a program platform for community sustainable economic development. I think I'm getting all of that in that same phrase. It's within the operations, we then have programs. For instance, the program that we're most furthest along with standing up is the solar program, which Brandon Boucher has put together. And it's just an excellent opportunity to use this platform as a way to train people locally on installing solar and maintaining it. This tribe wants to be energy independent. It's a driving issue, and they don't want to be using oil anymore. And if we can stand this up as a model here, it can be duplicated elsewhere. That's just an example. My feeling on this is really simple. We create the programs, we support the programs within a program template, which the board has already approved, and everybody's clear about what that thing is. And if it works, great. If it doesn't work, we learn from it and we keep moving on. One thing you're going to find out about us is none of us fear failure. None of us. We want to fail so that we learn from it. We will take our successes and we'll find the failures within those so that we can learn from them and not repeat it over and over and over. That's a core part of our values. Let's see, structure, and then committees. And this is really where everybody on this call comes in today. We're asking for committee members. We're asking for people who are willing to give us some time, give each other some time, and bring your expertise to the table in the form of sitting on a committee and helping us get that particular committee stood up, mission-oriented, and focused on moving forward. I cannot stress the value of each of you in those committees. So as we're going through this, you'll hear us talking about three things. The first one is what does this shop do to support the mission and goals? The second is the committees and the departments and what they do. And the third is what our needs are and what our volunteers can do to support those needs. This is intended to be a 10,000 foot level. This is not intended to be nitty gritty. And, we'll get into that on future calls. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Nancy to go over our, I call it policies, but it really is about standing up chapters.
Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. It's me again. When we set the organization up, we set up with bylaws, and the bylaws allowed us to, the bylaws are kind of the framework, and then we set up policies to actuate those bylaws. From the policies, we'll set up SOPs as things go forward for various programs and projects. So we had our first policy concerns were setting up the financial policies. We got them done fairly quickly. And then we've turned to chapters. And the reason is we see VSC as a national organization, but a national organization of chapters across the country, of people who want to be active both on a local level and a national level. And it's very often the local level that attracts all of us the most. For example, all of us right now are about to lose our sanity over the possibility of drilling off the Pacific coast again. The last time that happened, they practically drowned Santa Barbara in oil. So that's a local issue that could fit into some of the tools that Veteran Service Corps can provide. And that's the value of having a chapter in an area. We have no specific guidelines about how a chapter is formed from a geographic perspective. It doesn't have to be by state or by county. It can be geographic. So it can be all of the northeastern section of the United States or the southeast, or it can be Texas. However best fits with what the people of that chapter believe is their community. And that's really what we want to look at, is setting up chapters to provide an opportunity for veterans locally to be able to get together and serve their community. So we are, what are we, 9 months into the creation of the organization, 10 months now, and we're ready to get these chapters going. I would ask all of you to think about getting a chapter going. I don't know that it would be all that much work for anybody right now, other than starting to gather together the veterans and friends and allies in your community who would be interested in the type of work and the things that Veteran Service Corps does. And we will help you, with the structural part and getting things started. With that, if you have an interest in that, and I certainly hope that you do, you can contact me directly. My email is easy. It's nancy@vscamerica.org. So contact me and we can do this. Once we get, I get some initial interest, then what we can do is have a Zoom call of just those who are interested in standing up chapters. And, we can get together and talk about, the nuts and bolts and how to get things started and, initiatives that you may be seeing in your particular geographic region or area in your backyard, because, action starts at home, and it starts in our backyards. It starts with us and our families and our friends and our neighbors. And if we're going to make a change in our world and help others, that's the place to start. And with the chapters, then, when we have national type actions or initiatives that come up, if we have another DAPL situation or something like that, then we've got the chapters to go to and say, hey, this is happening. How many chapter members are available? And, who can do what? So we're looking for participation. We're ready to take that next step and grow the organization and make it more national. And I hope you're interested in that. I don't think I have anything else to say other than, in the future, I see the chapters as being the big driving force in the organization, because they're the people who are going to be on the ground in the area where issues and problems are arising to be addressed. And so the sooner we get them started, the sooner we can assist in dealing with issues. That's what I have to say, Dave.
Perfect. Right on time again, Nancy. All right. I am Dave Andrews. I'm Secretary of Veteran Service Corps and head of the S1 or admin shop. I was a member of Rhode Island Air National Guard from 1989 to 1995. And I am currently a mild-mannered social studies teacher at Woonsocket High School. I signed up for Veteran Stand about a week or two before, I want to say it was late November, and that was around the time that Chris had put out the order for no other personnel to come out because it was getting a little crowded at Ochetti. But I really wanted to go back and help out, so I did go in February and helped out with building the 4-bands camp. And while I was out there, I met some very interesting and incredible people, and I've been involved ever since. as head of the admin shop, obviously we're looking for people with admin experience. I was a radar operator, scope dope, as they called us. And, I did do administrative duties at my guard base and so forth, but we could absolutely use help with and people with admin experience. Also underneath admin is a finance committee. We're definitely looking for people with bookkeeping or accounting experience. Nancy has graciously taken that role and is doing a fantastic job, but we're always looking for more people to help out. We could also use help with donor tracking and appreciation. For instance, when people make contributions, we send out a thank you. We want to make sure we keep track of our donors and certainly let them know that we appreciate their gifts. Currently, we use Microsoft compatible Office 365. So if you have Microsoft or even Microsoft 365, you shouldn't have any trouble converting documents and so forth that we may send out from time to time. We're also in the process of setting up a program calendar so that we can better display and better keep track of our activities as well. One thing I wanted to put in as well was why VSC? And for me, it's because it's real. We're in this for the collective good. We're able to see beyond things that have been divisive in the country. Politics, religion, what have you, all those taboo dinner topics. Despite any of the differences we may have on such issues, we all certainly believe that the message is veterans helping veterans. It's deeply ingrained in us, and veterans helping veterans help their communities. Speaking for myself, I feel a deep sense of mission in working with First Nation communities. I'm honored that the Cheyenne River Lakota have embraced us and are doing all they can to build a partnership between the tribe and VSC. I really look forward to the day when we expand VSC's mission to regional chapters, which is something we've already begun working on. In my own neck of the woods, I've reached out to the Narragansett and Pokanoket tribes and have established some connections there. And also, we have thanks to a couple of the board members being from the Northeast, we have a good amount of contacts in this area. I am proud and honored to be a part of this org. I can't say enough about all the hard work and dedication that has gotten us as an organization to this point, about all the board members and the team members that have taken us this far. We've come a very long way in a pretty short amount of time. So if you do have interest in anything admin related, anything I've spoken about, please don't hesitate to email me. I'll put it in the comments too, in the chat. I can be reached at dave@vscamerica.org. Get back to me with how you can help, whatever you want to do, however you want to contribute. Brandon, who's going to speak a bit later too, is a good contact. He has been our go-to guy in terms of getting personnel, getting people out here, and helping out, fundraising, and so forth. And unless there is anything else, that's about all I have. Thank you. And we're going to move on to Pate, who is going to go through the S2, the research and analysis and operations. Take it away, Pate.
All right, so this is actually slated for 12 minutes. I think it'll take quite a bit less time. So the research and analysis is really intelligence in military terms. The committee that we're holding is the Education and Training Committee and the Research Analysis and Analysis Committee. So there's two committees under there. It's split up into two main groups, internal and external. Our internal, there are things like vetting, also internal needs awareness. The external are things like watching the news to find out how we're being talked about. Paying attention, The Intercept did a series of articles on Standing Rock and the what Tiger Swan did. And as we read through those articles, we learned how effective we were at operational security. We were highly effective at operational security when we came back in January and February. Highly effective. Some of the issues that we were facing at that point were things like rumors that were out of control. One rumor was that they were going to flood Oceti instantly. So we did the hydrological analysis and found out that they'd have to build a dam that was about twice the size of the Yangtze River Dam in order to flood Oceti It was not going to happen. And so we were able to quash that rumor right away. We also paid attention to the various agencies that were there. There were something like 40 different agencies at Standing Rock. They set up roadblocks all over the place. They prevented food, fuel, backflow meaning trash and waste from being removed, even though we paid for it. They wouldn't allow it. We did things like taking in truckloads of propane and each of their little bottles and covering up with a blanket to get past. What we found was that if we use the system, I'm going to say against itself, but if we took advantage of the system that they had set up, we know how to do that. I mean, we're all military. This is something that's well within our wheelhouse. So we researched what their expectations were in getting through that line, and we did it over and over and over. We were able to get through places because we were functioning as a humanitarian support organization, not as an activist group. So we provided the backbone for the four-band camp. That means we provided compost toilets, the kitchen, the infrastructure support, meaning building the tents, putting the floors in, facilitated the removal of the waste, the design of the camp itself, where things were located. And here's the kicker. Through a very quiet conversation, when we were invited back, we were told they had leased a space of land on Standing Rock. The Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe had leased a plot of land on Standing Rock Sioux Tribe that the stones that make up the Standing Rock name are actually sit on. And it was suggested that, register this thing as a UN consulate. You're a sovereign nation on another sovereign nation. They did. We had Brits. The British consulate showed up to welcome the new consulate because this tribe is a recognized government by the United Nations. And when we did that, it put up an invisible wall around that property that nobody could come into.
Made it eviction proof, which was what we were asked to do.
So, that's an example of the type of thing. And it's really the work on the ground, the hearts and the minds, that all falls within this S2 group. And a large part of Operation Eagle is hearts and minds. We've stood up sports leagues. We've stood up safe houses. We've stood up food kitchens. We've stood up food pantries. We've taken things that were falling apart and rebuilt them. We put in decks that have ramps for people. And we've done Chris even did a giant slip and slide when we were out of money last summer just to do something that drew out the kids in the town. When suicide had started back up, I know that's an odd thing to say, but when suicide started back up, we were able to, we had done enough in the community that the chairman invited us to be on his council to address the suicide issue. A number of the problems or the programs that we are working on for Promise directly associate to that. That's the sports leagues. That's the camp. It's Donnie working with the high school. She goes in and teaches math every day. We're very active with suicide prevention, not just with the veterans here, but really focusing on the children. And we're doing it through throwing a switch. What switch can we provide that is a cascading deal. So the S2 shop has the 3 committees, education and training, and that's really about the org. What type of education system do we need set up? What type of training system do we need set up to get our volunteers ready to go on the ground when they get here and to support the programs? And then internal and external, these are the guys who spent some time in the military as spooks and maybe spent some time as a civilian as a researcher. Myself, I'm a researcher. So my research revolves around sustainability data used in community decision-making processes. And that fits well within our internal and external. The need here is for people on the education and training committee first, and then we'll move further into delineation of the research and analysis committee itself. So there's 2 separate committees there. We'll be meeting next Saturday for both of those. One I'll post on Slack the time, so it'll be Saturday morning. So that said, now we get into operations. This is the bread and butter of what we're doing. Let's talk about how an operation comes together. It's based on a draft that's goal-oriented. It needs to, we cover all it's based on the, let me just read it actually. Where is it? The VSC operation plan is based on the National Incident Command System, United Nations NGO guidelines, the NATO command structure, and VSC bylaws, policies, and procedures. There's a methodology that we have to use that has a statement of authority coming from the board, change procedures, legal compliance procedures, compliance review, and reporting procedures. That's all built into the plan from the beginning. The organizational compliance is really important to us. It makes sure that everybody's on the up and straight and narrow. It involves a situation rep, but that literally will be coming out soon. The goals. So here's an example. Engage and mobilize veterans to address injustice and protect rights. That's one of our organizational goals. That's one of our organizational goals. How do we know if that goal will be successful? That's the measurable impact indicators. Here's how we know. When VSC has the capacity to support the mobilization and encampment of 10,000 veterans in 5 days. So what that means right now, we can support 1,900 people tomorrow. Tomorrow. Within 10 days, we can do 10,000. We have the infrastructure and gear necessary for that scenario. Within about 20 days, we could easily be at the 50,000 mark if we worked hard on it. But that's not for dissemination. That's through our partners. With just us, we're at 1,900. We can stand up 1,900 people tomorrow. The measurable impact indicators we found on social media, available sanitation, partnerships, kitchen mess capacity, energy capacity, and water capacity, and backflow capacity. The attainability requirements were outlined in what we call Operation Eagle, which is the entire support system necessary to put those 10,000 people on the ground within 5 days. So that's the type of how we're addressing these goals. The established Promise Ranch as our base of operation. Promise Ranch, the success criteria is that Promise Ranch is sustainably operating as the VSC base of operations. The impact indicators are that the ranch is a program platform and is self-supporting. And then we get into the resource availability, resources necessary, attainability requirements, and timeline. And it becomes really clear what we need to do month to month, day to day, or week to week, day to day, year to year even. The launching economic development, environmental sustainability, and youth initiatives to improve lives and communities of our veterans. The success criteria is partnerships developed, programs functioning, economic improvement indicators are showing improvement, the suicide rate is declining, educational data, it shows improvements, birth rates get lowered, and the age of women having children goes up. That's a sign of education effectiveness. The environmental quality is improved, and there's a thing called the happiness index, which is a way to develop to measure happiness in the community that we'll pay close attention to with those goals. So the measurable impact indicators there are people trained, people served, jobs created, effective programs, and there's a whole list of them beyond that. The attainability requirements are Project Management Committee, Operation Promise, and Operation Eagle. The resources necessary are outlined in Operation Promise, and the timeline is also outlined in Operation Promise. The fourth goal is to establish VSC as a humanitarian NGO. How will we know if we're successful? We'll be a humanitarian NGO registered with the United Nations and on the National Incident Command System. With the NICS, we're set up to respond to RFPs, requests for proposals, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later as we talk about what's next. The timeline still needs developed. There's some inserting requirements that need done in there. That's one of the things that the Operations Committee will be working on this next Saturday. The produce news for veterans and veterans allies. The monthly newsletter, weekly news magazine, daily blog, daily news aggregation through social media. We are actually already doing this. If you go to Twitter and you look up VSC Real News, you'll find that we've been aggregating news since last year. It's heavily focused on the Dakota Access Pipeline, and I am proud to report that as of September, it is completely propaganda free. I haven't had a single piece of propaganda come across that news wire. So if you're interested in what's going on out here on a day-to-day basis, that aggregator is set up to deliver off of Twitter at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, and it functions quite well. I think some of you may already be paying attention to it. And we're reaching between 800,000 and 1.5 million views a week off of that. 14 minutes. Okay. So that's an example of how we set it up. I just wanted to give an overview of operations and its relation to the org. It's time for us to move into supply and logistics.
Okay, without further ado, we're going to hand it over to board member Brandon Boucher, who is also our supplies, logistics, and personnel guru. Brandon, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Dave just gave me a pretty good introduction. I am a U.S. Navy veteran. I was a submariner from 93 to 97. I was a radioman there. I got out in 97. I got recalled on active duty because I still maintained my top secret security clearance, and I could already speak Arabic and Farsi. So I ended up in Afghanistan about 6 weeks after 9/11. I was there for 14 months, and then came back. Right now I am I've done 17 years in the IT profession. I'm pretty technical there. One of my greatest strengths is the ability to find, get, or figure out what we need. Right now, supply and logistics. We support all of the other S shops, make sure that they have everything that they need to accomplish the programs and projects that we have going on. Whether it's personnel, supplies, we also work on working with partner organizations for donations of said supplies, so on and so forth. we are currently building our staff. Right now, it's really just me. And then I pass off people that I actually interview and vet to other board members so that we can have a conversation with them. It really is, this is the backbone or the structure of what we actually do. Without supplies, without a base of operation, without personnel, we can't go anywhere. So what I'm actually looking for is working with the IT committee as well as the supply committee. If anybody has any of those experiences, or they want to get involved, anybody that does logistical or supply chain, that does negotiations for companies that do manufacturing, production, things like that, you want to talk to me. We're also tasked with helping find grants and partner organizations for specific projects. And in that vein, we're currently working with a couple partners to bring solar installation training to the CRST natives and veterans as part of our economic development program. And that's pretty much all I got.
Great. And also, I just wanted to throw in there too, we're also looking for people who can swing a hammer or carry a bag somewhere. So, certainly don't be intimidated when you hear some of the more high-tech aspects of stuff that we're looking for, because we're looking for people. So, and I'm going to swing it back to Pate, who's going to go into planning and development for us. Go ahead, Pate.
Pass that to Chris.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna cover that, Dave. All right, program planning and development. This is really the core and the crux of what we're doing. We have the opportunity here with the Ranch at Promise, this 29 acres and the facility here, to turn this into a place of learning, and to drive community-focused training through here. We haven't mentioned it before. Well, we've kind of mentioned it, but the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe has the highest rate of youth suicides in the Western Hemisphere. The highest rate of youth suicides in the Western Hemisphere. And the interesting thing about that is when the camp stood up in Standing Rock, the youth suicides across the area reservations went to nothing, went to zero. And they started up again after the evictions came. A lot of what we're doing here in this community is looking to combat that, to give hope, to give opportunity. And the way I see it, by engaging veterans who also have a high rate of suicides, especially as we approach middle age, we have the opportunity to save 2 lives every time we get engaged with something. So everything that we're looking to do here is to support providing jobs for the people on the reservation, to address the needs of the community here. And that's something that we would like to see replicated as we build out chapters. The biggest thing that we've already kind of mentioned that we have working, that we have a hope to pull off this year, is the solar panel installation training and certification. But we still need to get this property developed and ready for that to happen. And then once we get the property up and running, then we'll be able to expand out and have different rotating programs that, subject matter experts can come in, can hold the class for a week, 2 weeks, however long it is. And veterans can come in from all over the country, and it'll be available, of course, to the Native veterans here on the reservation and the surrounding reservations, to get those job and life skills, to get people a hand up, to get people back on their feet and integrate it back into society. And plus, one of the selfish things about it is being of service to others is the best treatment for PTSD that I have ever come across. And it's helping me out immensely with my own issues being focused on other people's. So the big things that we need as far as planning and development is we need to set up a couple of committees, and including one, as Nancy stated earlier, to start to develop chapters to get veterans engaged with other veterans and working in their own communities. So we have a couple of things that are coming up in the next month, the month of March. We have a small group of people coming out to do a solar assessment for this property here, so that we can cut our electric bill down. That's actually been quite large, and to help with the general cleanup of the property and getting it ready to go. There is also an event that coincides with the solstice that's very important to the Native culture here, and it's called Welcome Back Thunder. It happens in the Black Hills. It used to happen on the mountain that Mount Rushmore is now on, but of course we took that from them. So if you have any inkling to come out to the Black Hills next month, that would be a good time to come and to see. We're looking to follow that up again in April, to have another group of volunteers come out to do a work week to help rehab the property. In May, the Memorial Day. Most Americans look at it as a long weekend or a barbecue or whatnot. It's something very, very different here. Last Memorial Day, the few of us who are out here, we spent almost 14 hours traveling to about half of the cemetery. There were two groups of us, and between the two groups, we covered all 60-some cemeteries on the reservation that had veterans buried there, and rendered military honors to each one. And at every cemetery, the family members were there, and they had food prepared and a spread to say thank you for not forgetting their relatives. It is a huge deal. So again, if you were looking for a real life experience and to see something you've never seen before, look at trying to be here and to take part of that for Memorial Day. This tribe rotates with the Pine Ridge Reservation to handle the large Native cemetery that's down at the VA Center in Fort Meade, just outside of Sturgis, South Dakota. And we have been formally invited and requested to assist in that preparation. And then we're looking at the month of June to have as many people out here as possible for a full month of work of getting the property cleaned up and all the little bit stuff, so that we can be prepared to hold a short youth camp the last week of June and the beginning of August, again, to give the children here something to look forward to keep them from taking their own lives, so they come and experience it. And that's stuff involving culture. Hopefully we can have some horses on hand and do some equine therapy, different things like that, like a scout camp.
That's as far as we're programmed out right now, and it's a full load. It's a full load.
Yep. So there's a lot of work to be done there. So if you've got some ideas or some skills in helping get programs up and running and getting chapters up and running, we would love to have your help. And with that, I turn it back.
Okay, next up we have Maureen Walsh, who is a board member and has been a godsend to us in terms of fundraising, and she's going to go over a couple of things, in particular communications, I believe. So Maureen, take it away.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Just maybe one very long rambly sentence about my background, just so you guys, anybody who's interested in joining the efforts in our S group, kind of know a little bit about me. I've only worked in nonprofit for the last 30 years. I moved into leadership and, very early on in my career, I was a social work graduate student in Madison, and learned, during the first Iraq War, what activism means and what macro level issues look like in real life people's lives. And I spent the first 15 years of my career in inner city Minneapolis, running a couple alternative schools, opening a health clinic for adolescents, developing youth programming for out of school time. And because I am a passionate soul, I landed in fundraising and communications, and have continued my career for the latter 15 years in that way. So there are two committees that need to get established. I'll just say we've kind of been informally, a number of us been working on some key communications and fundraising strategies, members of the board and additional people that have gotten involved with VSC. But we're going to move toward a more formal kind of regular meeting structure here in the month of February yet. And the purpose of these two committees, first on communications, it really is it really is about telling the VSC story, and telling it, as loudly, broadly, and clearly as possible. At the end of the day, that's what we need to do right now, and to garner, we're doing that in order to garner as much involvement and buzz as possible in order to call attention to the work of the organization and the needs that we're trying to wrap our arms around, in addition to raising money. The purpose of the fundraising committee is obviously the latter, although they both depend on one another. Communications and fundraising are often in each other's pockets, as we say. We are raising money. I mean, Chris and Pate just talked about some of what we're embarking on in 2018. We have a tremendous amount of talent to leverage, and we have some assets, both in the form of property as well as equipment and materials and supplies to leverage. But we have a heck of a lot of money to raise in order to engage veterans from around the country in the work, both on the national level and potentially on collective local action as well. And so we're focused on a handful of key fundraising priorities that I'll cover in the last 1 minute of my time. So I'd like to spend the next 3 minutes just with a laundry list of kind of shout outs for what we need. I'll just preface this by saying this is it's not the work of the organization per se, but it is incredibly important that we try to find as much talent to drive at these strategies as possible, as soon as possible. So let me just jump in first of all. So we need PR. We need a person that understands the world of media relations and can help build a strategic PR plan, keep it alive and well on a quarterly basis, be seeking opportunities, be support for our key spokesperson in Chris Dusing, potentially be a spokesperson for the organization as well. We need digital marketing strategy and tactics. We've got a website that has had a pretty significant facelift in the last 3-4 months, but needs a vision and kind of constant content development. We'd like to do some more digital advertising in the year ahead with very little budget. So needs somebody's brains and feet around that. We really need a social media manager. We've got 2 people right now, both of whom do a great job in terms of researching connection points to maximize our social media messages. We just need more, and we could kind of use a thought leader around it, as well as somebody that could be a ongoing developer of content, as well as editor and manager. A number of us have already talked about strategic partnerships. I just wanted to put out one call out. There are strategic partnerships that are just helpful for the organization from a field standpoint. There are also ones that will grow our reach as an organization, that if we hook our trains together, our reach could potentially support another organizations, and their reach could support ours. And so just wanting to lay that lens out there. We desperately need videography and photography. We have been using a permission granted photography from Standing Rock, from professional photographers that were out at Standing Rock for the mobilization in November and December of last year. We've gotten their permission to use that photography. We need more professionally done videography and photography. I can't tell you how important it is in terms of distinguishing and really capturing our message and our story well. Lastly, I would just say, Pete talked about our news effort, our strategic direction in terms of being a great source of news, of the truth. We also need content developers on a regular newsletter. We're starting with a quarterly newsletter to our base of supporters and base of interested folks. And Heather, one of our volunteers, has been gracious in standing up and being willing to begin being an author of that. We need more writers, and we need frequency to go up over the course of 2018. So I would say that is another critical priority from communications. I'm running out of time. Let me just hit fundraising really fast. You can imagine that a fundraising plan for an organization like this is kind of like throwing the most delicious spaghetti against the wall and just seeing what could stick. We've spent the last 6 months seeing things stick and seeing other things slide off the wall in a manner that tells us to not continue trying. We have a base of individual supporters. We need to grow that. We need appeal writers. We need direct mail writers and project managers. We could use somebody thinking about how to leverage our social media, how to grow our reach through social media and get more peer-to-peer fundraising happening in social media. We could use another person beyond me trying to raise money through major gift solicitation. We need grant writers. We really actually could only use, I'm just going to venture out to say, if we could start with 2 capable, experienced grant writers, that would be a gift to the organization. We also could use, as Brandon mentioned, prospect researchers and sponsorship requesters from companies, particularly those that are vet friendly. We'd like to get out as much as possible for in-kind donations as well as corporate grants from companies that care about our veteran community. I think the last thing I want to say about our fundraising strategy is public funding and tribal grants, both government and tribal grants. This is an area for us that we know that we need to lay a little bit of a foundation before we'll have enough strength as an organization to appropriately administer those larger grants. But we want to start finding them and strategizing around them, and so we're definitely looking for people that can bring that expertise to the fore. I think I want to just end by saying, that Pate mentioned the critical priorities for the organization, and then Chris spoke to it as well. Getting Promise Ranch prepared to function as our base of operations, not only to mobilize veterans and allies and support logistical efforts, provide logistical support to mobilize many people in peaceful protesting. We also need to raise money to make Promise the center for programming for economic development and educational initiatives, both for members of the tribe as well as for veterans from around our country. So it's an ambitious fundraising goal that we have for 2018, and it'll only get more ambitious after that. And we could use your help. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you, Maureen. I think you'll all notice too that none of us dared to interrupt Maureen, nor would we. I'm of the opinion that during board meetings, she is certainly the smartest person in the room. So we're not going to interrupt. So, And then we're going to take it back to Pate, who is going to go into VSC next. What's next? Pate?
Talk to the microphone.
All right. Let me turn mine on. Yeah, you're supposed to. All right, now that the feedback issue is fixed, so the phone's not on. So what's next? We came together, quite frankly, to make the world a better place through community, through service and community. When we came to Standing Rock, many of us didn't realize that what we were actually doing was embarking on a healing journey. And as we talk about these plans and what we've set up with this org and its possibilities moving forward, it's important to remember where we came from. So we were highly effective over this last year in achieving the one serious goal we were looking at is, can we stand up or land on the ground a couple thousand people within a few days? And we're there. We're very close there. What we found in doing that was this community of brothers and sisters, our veterans right here in 2 of the 5 poorest counties in North America. So I don't know what you all make a year. In Cherry Creek, the average income there is $638 a year. That is less than the $2 a day that the UN says should meet the Millennial Development Goals. The average income here is about $2,600 a year, 90% unemployment. Most of the people who are employed are veterans. Most of the people who have money coming in some way other than the BIA checks, which are very, very small, are what keeps this community afloat. When we came to Standing Rock, we brought a lot of donated stuff. I mean, truckloads of it. One guy even brought 26,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. 26,000 pounds of sweet potatoes. So what happened is that the sweet potato market crashed here. What little market there was. This is a reservation that's the size of Connecticut with 11,000 people on it. We had thousands of sleeping bags that showed up. Thousands of sleeping bags. You won't have to buy a sleeping bag here for the next 20 years. And the store that had the sleeping bag on its shelf, they're screwed. Nobody wants to buy the sleeping bag when you can get it for free. So we really looked at what's the sustainability aspect of the support we want to provide. And it ends up in humanitarian service, humanitarian support and service. That's our game. So we created this engine. What can we do with this engine? And this is where it gets fun. When I was standing on the ground in Standing Rock, I literally looked around and I thought, what happens if Veterans Stand can be a transparent organization whose job it is to get every single veteran who wants a job, a job? What happens when we start working together toward that goal? So 10 years from now, I would like to look back and go, we did it. We did it. If you want a job and you're a veteran or you're a veteran within the veteran community, we want to make it our mission to find you that job or to create that job. And instead of going out and really promoting a corporate philosophy, let's promote a community philosophy. Let's go back to the basics of sustainability. Let's get back to the basics of caring for one another. And we can do that with this platform. Everything that I do since the beginning of this has been focused on, can we get to that point? So that's what I think this can be. And in the process of that thought, and writing it down and figuring out what it would take to get there, it became really.
Your sound cut out, Pate.
Hey, you muted yourself. Still muted.
Think he needs a visual. Bad lip syncing now.
We want to be responding to government RFPs and community RFPs, so that when there's a washout like happened in California last month, you know, we have a couple thousand veterans who show up to help clean up. When there's a hurricane that hits an island that is completely unprepared and completely unsupported by its federal government, we as veterans, we have that training specifically to address problems like that, big systemic problems. And you know, it really sucked for all of us who've been working on this year, knowing we weren't ready to respond to an event like Puerto Rico or Texas or Florida or the wildfires in Gatlinburg or the water crisis in Flint or the border wall or the drilling, the uranium mining out of the Black Hills that are poisoning these streams, the arsenic issues with the water supply on the Great Miami River in Ohio. It turns out there's been a couple towns just dumping all their waste right in the river for about 60 years, and nobody paid attention to it. We wonder why our rivers are dead. So, you know, if we think about this as an engine, I think about this as an engine, and we all try to think about it that way. What can it produce? This is where you come in, each of you. And I'm talking to the Bart Tippetts of the world and the Sarah Malikas and the Manny McMahons. This is where you come in. What do you bring to the table? What skill do you have that none of us have that we can amplify? And we can turn that into something that really gives to other people. That's the direction that we want to go. I don't know if we'll actually get to the point in 10 years where we have a job for every veteran, but what if we do? And that starts here at Promise. At Promise, we have the opportunity for an economic development platform that can be scaled, it can be portable, it can be repeatable. This thing is a test bed that needs to be repeated. So we're keeping careful track of all the data. We want to analyze it. We want to find out what we can do better the next time that we do it. We're getting into things like the camps, the summer camps, the humanitarian support for the protest camps, humanitarian observation training through the National Lawyers Guild with Rita Sebastian. All of those are items that we want to do. We have a medical group that's headed up by Jackie Whitehat. We've, and we're standing up these committees that'll all get us there. A few days ago, we were in a meeting in Eagle Butte, and it was with the Warriors. It was just a side comment. Wouldn't it be cool if we could put it in a marina someday down on the river? And the immediate answer, it was just a side comment. The immediate answer was, write it up, write up a plan. That could provide at least 15 jobs. We have the tribe has the grant. They get federal grant preference, especially for economic development. And they have the land, they have the people who need the jobs. And one of the things people don't know about the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe is it is sitting on one of the largest pools of oil in the world. It's larger than Kuwait's. And the folks here refuse to tap into it. The pressure to tap into it is growing. I already talked about 2 of the 5 poorest counties in North America being right here on this reservation and being full of veterans. This is the lowest hanging fruit, so to speak. This is the weakest part in our governmental system, is how do we support our Native communities? And how do we end literally 300 years of institutionalized genocidal policies? And we do that I believe we do that through sustainable economic development and really focusing on that multicultural camaraderie. That we have a place to understand what our brothers and sisters who fought for this country. Every single male here on the reservation was drafted into each of the wars, Vietnam especially. These are our brothers and sisters, and what we've done as a society that allows for this institutionalized genocide, well, it was eye-opening over this last year. And this is the type of program that can be taken and repeated over and over and over and over. That's our goal. And so I ask each of you, what can you bring to the table? What can you bring to the table today? What can you bring to the table tomorrow? And what can you bring to the table next year and 10 years from now? If you have an idea that you think will fly here, bring it up. Sarah Malika is a 7th generation farmer on her farm in Ohio and is interested in permaculture and agricultural sustainability. She has wonderful ideas, and we can't wait to get her plugged in here at the ranch so that we can turn this into a productive facility. It's inspiring, and we get this every day. It's literally every day. Chris and I have said each other, looked at each other, and gone, "Holy moly, what's going on here?" I mean, this is something. We see it from the 1-inch level, and we see it from the 100,000-foot level. And when we have strangers coming up to us and hugging us and saying, "Good job, this is what our community needed," that matters. I'm going to tell one last story. It's pretty fast. Remy Bald Eagle is one of our main contacts here. He's a chief of staff for the chairman. And I had a meeting with him last January. And I went with my hat in my hand and apologized for some of the problems that were caused with the veterans coming in December. And he stopped me. And he said, "Pate, I don't think you've realized this. Half the veterans here, every other person that you meet, or half the people here, every other person is a veteran. And we were embarrassed to admit that we were a veteran on our own community, on our own reservation, because of the way the Army had treated the natives and the way the government treats the natives." He said we were embarrassed, but it was the only way out. It's the only hope that you have to get training here is to join the military. And he's like, I did my time. He retired. I actually knew of him in the Ohio Army National Guard. And here's what he said: "I'm proud to wear my uniform again." So you look at the impacts that we've had this year, and I think the biggest one is the restoration of pride. Knowing that you're doing something right, that you're doing something honest, that it's transparent, that there's integrity involved, that we listen with our ears and not our mouths, that we pay attention to the needs of the least of these, for that is truly the strength of the best of us. And that's the direction that we're going. That's where we're headed. I hope that you all will bring your talents and skills on board, and like I said earlier, amplify them. We want to turn up your volume. So please consider how you might be able to add into what we're doing. And if there's something that you're just not seeing a spot for you, tell us what you can do, and we'll create it. And over this next year, we will develop into the organization that we need to be to get ready for the next 10 years. Our immediate need right now is volunteers. Our second need is funding. Chris is too shy to say this, so I will. This guy has used his complete pension every month to keep us going. It's all of us on the board have put substantial personal savings into this and our own money and efforts. We are to the point of about $1,500 or so in the bank, and we have a number of bills coming due quickly. We have to support this Promise platform if we're going to be successful. There's a lot of work to do here. When we got this building, it was a dilapidated mess of crap. And there's not a square angle in this place. So we have a property plan, a property development plan that really sets this up as a small community that is totally exists to create these programs, get them off the ground and get them rolling, maintaining them, learning from them as a national training center and program platform, economic development platform. So that's the overview. I think I've been pretty clear about, and everybody else has been pretty clear about where our needs are. Our biggest need right now, by far, is fundraising. We had a $1,280 electric bill. This building is being heated by electric heaters that are portable. It is not a sustainable situation because the boiler doesn't work. But we realize the importance of it. So that's why our own funds have been going into this for so long. I want to take this opportunity too to thank Fran Carr, because we had a wedding this last summer, and most of the money that we'd been saving went toward keeping this thing going. And our wedding was still really nice and enjoyable, but a lot different than what I'm sure she had in mind. And it's not very often that you find a partner in life who's willing to sacrifice something like her wedding so that a bunch of veterans can get together and go do stuff out in some reservation out in South Dakota. But she saw where we're going and what we're doing, and she's seen our dedication to it, and now she's on board as a volunteer herself. So thank you, Fran. And thank you for everybody coming on. I really appreciate your time and listening to us. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Pate. I was just going to run through. There were several questions as we went along. I just wanted to touch on them very quickly. Joe from out in Chicago had asked about Bears Ears, the National Monument, how the Trump administration has opened that up, a significant chunk of it to mining and so forth, mineral exploitation. He wanted to know if we were involved with that. At this point, like you've heard, we're in our infancy here. Certainly something we'd like to look at in the future.
It's something we want to be involved in. It's just we simply don't have the people power or the financial resources to make a bigger difference there right now. But with help and outreach, we can.
Yep. And on the issue of outreach, Steph Miller had asked, is there a current outreach strategy to let VAs and ROTC offices know about the chapters? And that would be an excellent route to go. We don't have that yet. I have reached out to the Rhode Island VFW. Any type of organizations that have veterans involved is a good way to go, and that's an excellent point. Thank you, Steph. Let's see what else we had for questions. I'm just scrolling through here quickly. We know we're looking for admin help. We did put several of our emails up here. I think, Brandon, there's an info@vscamerica.org, or you could email board@vscamerica.org, I think, is a catch-all, and we'll get it there. Go ahead.
Please use info@america.org. Otherwise, it will not. The board distribution list is very specifically set up with a filter. Please use info@vscamerica.org to communicate with the organization. Great. Or actually one of us directly if you have our email address, which is really easy. It's our first name @vscamerica.org.
Great. And Joe, I did get your email, and I'll get back to you on your question there. Lisha and David had asked, is there any possibility of an operation helping homeless veterans, giving them something to do and purpose again? That's basically kind of what we're all about. And I believe Chris had answered that one. And yes, we are active with the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe's homeless shelter and safe houses and so forth. Let me run through again quickly. There was a question about wind power. Yes, there's plenty of wind out on the reservation. Brandon and Chris might be able to speak a bit more about that. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, the wind will knock you over. So that is a resource that, unlike some members of Congress who think it's a finite resource, yeah, we've got the go-ahead for sustainable energy. One of the goals of the current chairman here of the tribe is a move towards invoking their sovereignty, and energy independence is a critical part of that.
Great. Steph Miller had also mentioned, I wrote this down, lacrosse programming. We had a bunch of donated baseball and softball equipment, and we helped start up a league on the res last summer, and got a lot of kids involved in that. My pet project is flag football. I'm going to bring more stuff out in April, crossing my fingers. Hopefully we could do something with that as well. Lacrosse is interesting too. And I think Joe may have mentioned something about knowing somewhere where they actually make their own lacrosse sticks, which is pretty interesting stuff. I did write that down as well. Let's see.
Dave, do you just want to open it up for questions?
Yeah, I think we can, because that was pretty much it anyway. I just wanted to make sure so people didn't, double up on the questions. So if you do have a question, you can either type it into chat, if you have the hand raising capability too.
Or unmute yourself and ask it.
There you go.
We've built the base of the organization, folks. We're looking at this as a way of taking it to the next level. We can't do it alone. We've done an incredible amount with the limited resources that we've had over the last year, and I'm immensely proud and humbled by the support and the efforts that folks have given to the organization. And right now the sky's the limit. It's just ideas and the people power and the resources to get it done, and we can make some significant positive impacts on communities, not just here on this reservation, but across the country. So what are your questions? Comments, concerns?
Lisha just wrote in the comments that Mark, it's either Smith or Smythe, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, expert in permaculture. We were, as we said earlier, looking for someone with permaculture skills. And she asked, can you tell us what you would like in terms of help in that area?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we can. So last year we stood up a community garden in Eagle Butte. We also helped plant some sage and sweetgrass behind the cultural center. It's the opportunity for permaculture here is significant. It's wanted. It's a return to traditional food sources as opposed to colonialized food sources. We have 28 acres with 2 ponds, actually 4 ponds right now, but soon to be 2 ponds. We have a moat out back that the previous occupants thought it was 2 of them. One of them is the size of a swimming pool, and the other one is the size of a water bowl.
And one has impacted our water feed line, and the other has impacted the sewage drainage line. So fun.
It's a lot of pumping. That's being all that's being cleared up with IHS and the property and supply here on the reservation. But the previous occupants brought in a significant amount of topsoil for granite gardening in the west field, where eventually we'll spend to east field. We'll spread out to building sites. It's a 4-acre plot. It's already irrigated, and it does have decent soil. Not good soil, but decent. The problem is wind here. Nothing grows out in the wind. Nothing
That's
grows.
not why it doesn't grow.
No.
That's not why it doesn't.
So it's you don't see. Well, I don't know, Chris. Can you show a picture of the landscape?
I don't have anything readily available. We're in a kind of a bowl. It's called the Moreau River Valley. Moreau River is about a mile up the road, and the Missouri River and Lake Oahe are a couple of miles beyond that. When they built the dam and pier to create Lake Oahe, they basically flooded all of the good agricultural land that both the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe had access to. So that's part of
I think when it comes to permaculture, since we have a couple people who really have some expertise here, what we need is someone to take a look at the conditions and what we have there at Promise and come up with a plan. We don't know how to do it. That's why we're asking you. Help us. Come up with a plan, and we'll do everything we can to get it started. But that's what we need. We need this expertise. We need people to come in and help us start putting these projects together.
I said that nothing would grow. It's not nothing that will grow. It's only items that are highly wind resistant that will grow out in the open. And, they're not high production items or high production crops. We need an expert to come in here, a couple experts, and come up with a long-term plan of what this thing can be in terms of a permaculture situation where it's producing food for the volunteers and for the people here on the reservation. In addition to that, we have the whole town of Eagle Butte and each of the hamlets that would like, to do the same type of thing in. The more permaculture, the more availability of free food that is grown right here, the better off.
If I can jump in a sec too, just a quick question here from Bart Tippett about Veteran Stand for Standing Rock, and Brandon chimed in that yes, we are in contact with them, which was different from the original Veteran Stand.
Yeah, it's a complete political issue that we're not going to get into right now.
Right.
But we are in contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
With what? Okay.
Marty had asked about greenhouses. Yes, there are two. They are very small greenhouses on site. I think Marty may have been talking about larger greenhouses, but it is a 29-acre property, and I know that there were two smaller greenhouses. And then Lisha and David said they had multiple conversations about windmill generators. Again, I guess that's still an issue on the reservation. Really haven't moved toward the generation of wind power, which to me makes sense.
Well, it's in the conversations that I've had with some of the natives last year. It's an eyesore, and it takes away from the beauty of the land that they kind of have an issue with the look of it. So that's something that we have to we have to be careful about putting up or about suggesting that. That's why solar, which they get a lot of sun on the flat prairies. That was our first low hanging fruit really for solar, and the fact that the cost for solar is still incredibly low when it comes to renewable energy.
Okay. It's the same issue out here in the East. For a long time, people were concerned about land values, not so much, off of Block Island, which is just off the coast of Rhode Island. There was a big issue with that, but they proceeded and they are putting up the wind turbines. So certainly that's an issue that the tribe would have to contend with. So they would give any approval to that sort of thing. The issue of the marina is something that's definitely in the future, but Jim Armour let us know that he is in contact with Missouri River Relief Partnership. So we may want to tuck that away too. I'll write that down in a minute. Go ahead.
My time is up. I
Okay.
have to go. I wanted to just thank everybody for participating today and being here, and I hope to get the opportunity to get to know all of you to come and help us. One last thing I want to say, everything you've heard that has been created today and that we've done has been done since April 10th, 2017, in less than a year. So I kind of look at it as if we can get all the structure in place and get as much done as we've done so far with virtually no finances, there is a great opportunity here if we can get some more people involved with the skills you all have, and we can move forward. So I hope you join us. I hope you stay in touch. And again, thank you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. And with Nancy's departure, I think we're going to wrap it up here as well. I know some of the board members wanted to meet and talk for a few minutes post-meeting, but we have certainly provided our emails here, contact information, and volunteer information. If you have any other questions, please email us, call, whatever you need to do, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. And I certainly want to thank you for all attending and hanging in there with us. Chris?
Yep. I'll take this opportunity to invite each and every one of you to make the trip to the center of the country to see Promise Ranch and to see the opportunity for yourself that we have here and the work that's needed to be done. I thank you all for your time. Hope you learned something about us today. Especially hope that you've been motivated in some way to help out and to take part with us to help us carry our mission forward and to do the right thing for the people. Some of us are going to hang out for a while, so we're going to conclude the formal portion of the meeting. So if anyone has any questions or concerns or wants to shoot the crap, please feel free to hang out and do so. But again, this is what my life is now, is being of service to the people of this community and to try to set a proof of concept that can be replicated into every community in need across the country, and hopefully over enough time and resources throughout the entire world, to bring people together, to give people hope, to give people a better life. So in service, I thank you all for your time, and I look forward to your participation. And anyone who wants to hang out and ask questions or whatnot, feel free. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, the way I see it, if the people of this country are going to constantly want to thank us for our service, I'm sure it's all going to give them a reason to.
Actual service this time.
To the people.
Yes. Hey, Jackie.
I want to give everybody a really exciting piece of news here. Chris and I went walking down,
Can you hear me?
and
Oh, good.
it's frozen, and we stumbled across